Okay, so what makes you unique? I gave you some examples with Josh, and that is an extreme example. But it could be that you have had your own particular journey with cancer, or you've had your own particular journey about an abusive relationship, or you've had your own particular journey about, doesn't have to be disease, it could be that you are a successful entrepreneur, or whatever your message is. You are all completely and totally unique. There is no such thing as somebody else has already had this idea. Just get rid of that right now. When people say to me, oh, there's lots of books on this subject, fine. There's not lots of books on your subject, right? Because we are all totally unique, completely unique. We all learn different ways, and we all learn different ways from different people, right? That's why there's so many books in the world, because what works for one person doesn't work for another person, right? Depends on where we are in our own journey of life. So there needs to be all those different choices so that different people can identify with different people. And this is one of the very first things that I teach people when I do my 2-day mastermind process, is I ask them to really think carefully about the person that they can help the most. Even to the point of like describing in great detail who would be that one person that would read your book and go, oh my God, this book has changed my life. Who would that person be? And if you could actually describe that person in detail, it doesn't have to be, male, this age, this demographic, lives here, whatever. It is describing what is that person, what is that knowledge that person wants from you. And I will tell you, it's all completely and totally unique and individual to every single person. So that's one of the first things that I discuss in the mastermind process I do, is that I say to people, you have to understand you are unique. You are special, right? And there is nobody else like you. So get it out of your mind right now that somebody else has, done the same thing as what you're thinking of doing, or that somebody else has already had that idea, or that somebody's going to steal your idea. That's another one of the things that I hear all the time. Oh, I can't give my idea to 8 people in a room because they're going to steal it, right? It's not possible for them to steal your life, right? And your knowledge, it's yours. Nobody can steal it, okay? Ah, dear. It's you, it's yours. Okay, so this whole thing about how will my book stand out? How will my book be different? You just have to remember, you are different. You are you. You are unique. Okay, so you will establish yourself as the go-to person, as I explained with Josh. I keep going back to that example because it's an easy example to use, right? He will become the go-to person of people that want to be inspired, not just to walk, but an inspirational story in its own right. Wow, look at this guy. I'm complaining because I've got backache. Oh, big deal, right? Big deal. I've got a steel rod in my back. That guy has got 3% use of his spinal cord. What have I got to complain about, right? It's a very inspiring story. Okay, so once you establish yourself as that expert, which means that first you have to believe in yourself, right? You have to step into your own power and believe in your knowledge and your experience and own it, right? It's yours. Own it and share it, right? Own it and share it. And then lots of other people will benefit from it, okay? Okay, so this is the question I get asked. Yes, thank you. Isn't it difficult to get published? So now I want to just give you some quick information here because you're all totally inspired. And if I now just give you loads of bad news, I'll feel the energy in the room going, like that sort of Skype thing, that little thing that makes that funny noise. So I'm going to just tell you these facts very quickly, but I want you to know There's more good news to come, okay? So, at the moment in the market, 95% of all book sales come from 5% of the authors, okay? So think about that. It's the Stephen King, it's those few names, we can probably all name them on two hands, right? All those big people that are selling millions and millions and millions of books, which actually account for 95% of all book sales, okay? So what about the other 5%? The other 5% is the millions and millions of other people that are writing books that are selling less than 1,000 books. That's what the market is made up of. So in reality, you've got this huge difference, right? You got here, people making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and here, people that are making a few $100s. And pretty much not very much in the middle, right? So that's the reality, okay?
So 5% sell 1,000 copies?
Mm-hmm. 95%.
Oh,
Yeah, 95%.
How many books do you have to sell to be a bestseller?
Well, it depends on where you are, and it depends on the algorithms, right, of who is calculating a bestseller, right? In America, the usual quantity to be a bestseller is about 15,000 books. Not that many. 15,000. Here's the other thing that is the biggest myth. We all think, dream, hope that a big publisher is going to find us miraculously. They're going to pay us a huge, massive advance, okay? And then we're going to be rich and famous overnight, okay? In reality, that doesn't happen unless you're in that top 5%, okay? 70% of all advances that are paid do not make back their advance. This is the thing that people forget, the word advance. What does advance mean? It's an advance on sales. So if your book doesn't sell 1,000 units, right, you don't make back your advance. And sometimes you might have to pay it back, right? And it's highly unlikely that you will get anything else after that initial advance. So actually it's got to the point now where really the only people that get advances are those people in that top 5%. Okay. Now, if you think about it, in reality, I'm a businesswoman, right? I'm not going to get into a game like publishing unless I can make some money out of it, okay? Because if I don't make money, how am I going to stay in business, right? How am I going to make money when I'm not, if I pay an advance hoping that someone's book's going to sell, an unknown author, somebody who's never published before. If you add up all the costs of what it actually takes to publish a book, it's somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000, right? When you actually look at the proper cost, right? I'm not talking about self-publishing a book and getting your friend who's got an English major doing the editing. You know, I'm talking about a team of editors, professional editors that spend probably, 100 hours maybe on your book. And I'm talking about professional book designers, not your next door neighbor who's kind of cool with graphic design and that's a kind of cool jazzy thing that could make a pretty nice book cover, right? Marketing. I'm not talking about somebody who looks at marketing as a product, right? A fast-moving consumer good. So there's all these other elements, and if you look at what it costs to professionally publish a book, it's close to $50,000, right? If you're going to do it properly. Now, if the book's only going to sell 1,000 books, right? The publisher doesn't even make back the cost of publishing that book. So just imagine how many books they lose money on in the hope of getting one of those top 5% people. Sometimes they get lucky, right? Who's the lucky person, Amy? The famous lucky person? The first-time author from England? Right. That was lucky. Incidentally, J.K. Rowling was really not a first-time author. She actually sent her proposal out to 200 publishers and got rejected by 200 publishers. And so her friend, her neighbor who had a small printing press, said, hey, why don't we print like 500 copies of your book? And why don't you then send a copy of your book to those same publishers and see what they think then? And that's how she was given the publishing contract by Raincoast. Because she took the initiative to say, hey, not only is my work great, I'm going to prove to you what it's going to look like as a finished product. Because that's the other myth that people have about publishers. They think that they just come to a publisher with an idea and then the publisher finishes it for them, right? I have people say to me all the time, well, I'm not going to start the manuscript until I've written my proposal and got accepted by my literary agent, right? I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's like, do you think an artist would actually like half paint a picture and then take it to an agent and say, I haven't finished this because I thought you might do a better job of it. So let me know if you're interested in finishing my work, right? You know, it's one of those big myths about publishing. And that's why J.K. Rowling was successful, because she actually showed a finished product and said, this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. And this is how it's going to be marketed. And this is what, the benefits are of this book. And the publisher looked at it and went, wow, this is great. This is great. We can do something with this. So she was a very smart lady. Either that or her neighbor was a very smart man. But, she showed the finished product, right? Okay. So what changed is in 2010. Now, 2010, this is when I came into the industry, right? And this is why I came into the industry. Prior to this time, as an entrepreneur, I could not have been a publisher, right? Because the only way that you could publish a book would be if you could afford, $50,000 to print several thousand books and put them into stock. Because the only technology was offset printing. And offset printing means you needed to print a lot of books, right?
You have to produce the plates.
And you have to produce the plates, exactly. So it's very expensive to produce plates. So you can't just print a few $1,000s because you've got to cover the cost of the plates, okay? So publishers would not make that investment unless they were guaranteed that they were going to at least sell enough books to cover the cost of those plates. So what happened in 2010 is print-on-demand technology came in. Digital, exactly. And actually, right here in BC, it was actually created in Victoria by Bruce Batchelor, who was an environmentalist. He was the founder of Trafford Publishing, and he started that company because he wanted to find another way to stop so many trees being destroyed by the 90-day sale or return policy. Millions of trees every year. Remember, those books get returned. What happens to them? They get destroyed. Destroyed.
Don't they just sell them at the discount book place?
No, they don't. They try and do that, but remember, we're in the same cycle. You're recycling the same things over and over again. Here, clearance house. Yeah. Here's a load of books. Don't sell. Okay, send them back again. Right? It's the same cycle. And about 10 years ago, they stopped sending them to charities because the black market started, right? And that's when you heard all this news about people saying if you saw a book and the front cover was ripped off, then don't buy the book because it's a black market book. And that's why, because they found their way into the black market even though they were supposed to be going to charities. So now, blanket policy, all publishers, books are destroyed, burnt, destroyed.
Well, they'll just recycle that and make the paper.
They don't even do that.
What?
They don't even do that. They don't, it's absolutely, seriously disgusting. It's disgusting what they do. I've actually met people students mostly, that, get their dream job working in chapters.
Yeah.
And because they are, a student and they're new, then they're given the worst job in chapters, and that's to be in the warehouse destroying books, ripping off covers of books. Seriously. Yeah. It's a nightmare. So Bruce Batchelor really wanted to change this, and he was a real environmentalist. So he worked with Xerox to create the world's first print-on-demand printing press for a book. And it was bigger than this room. And basically what happened is it's Xerox, so it's a photocopier type technology. And what basically happens is it kind of comes in one end, black and white sheets are printed. Then the cover, the 4-color photo cover is printed. Then they meet together and they're perfect bound, glued together, and then pops out a book at the end, right? Amazing technology, and changed the world of publishing overnight. Trafford Publishing were the first print-on-demand publishers in Victoria. Overnight success, introduced this whole concept of self-publishing, opened the market up to people that could never be published before. Overnight, 462% increase in the market. Literally overnight. It was huge. 2008, think about it. This was when the slump was going on, right? When every single industry was failing. Look what happened because of technology. 462%, because now it's available to everybody, right? And so it's not just that elitist top 5%. Now it's open to way more people, okay?
So your cost of your books are consistent whether you print one or you print them out?
Exactly. I mean, the scale still works to an extent, but basically, yes, you can print one book at a time. And this is how Amazon does business, right? Amazon does not keep huge, massive inventory of all of their books. They basically print one book at a time. Now, that's not completely literal, because it's not actually very efficient to print one book at a time, which is why Trafford went bankrupt and were purchased by Author Solutions, which is the monopoly I was telling you about, right? Because they started something, right, which then, everybody else got on board, and then it became, of course, a monopoly. Yes, thank you. So with the new technology, no sale or return is no longer needed, right? That's why Amazon came into the market so aggressively, because they only print what they sell. And often, I'm sure you'll see this on Amazon, they'll collect quite a few orders before they start printing and selling, which is why on Amazon you'll get we'll deliver in 2 to 3 weeks and that sort of thing. And that's because that's how they're managing their inventory on a tiny little shoestring. They don't really want to keep very much stock of anything, of any book at all. And that's why they're successful. So it's great. It's great for trees. Okay? The author also benefits, because now the power's back to the author, right? They have now got their own control. They are no longer dependent on a big publishing house that will only give them a tiny little piece of the pie. They've now got their own big piece of the pie, okay? So why isn't everybody selling thousands of books? I'll tell you about that in a moment. Social media is the way forward, right, with book sales. So we talked earlier about bookstores and what's happening with bookstores. If we try and sell all our books through bookstores and that one distribution channel, it's not going anywhere. The world has changed significantly. The way we communicate has changed significantly, right? The World Wide Web and the internet is how we now communicate. It's now how we buy books, right? My friend recommends, right? This reviewer says, that's how we are buying books now. Now, again, I'm not saying bookstores are dead, right? There will always be a place for bookstores, but you cannot rely on them as the only way to sell books anymore, because that's asking for trouble.